Hello and welcome to Cooking with Steve. Now, noodles are one of my favorite dishes of all time, and my grandmother used to make them, and this is kind of a episode I'm kind of trying to honor her a little bit, and we're going to make turkey and noodles. Let's get started. I grew up in the Midwest, and noodles was a big deal back home. And my grandmother made them, my mother made them. I got to talking to my cousin Bruce the other day, and he was talking to me about how grandma's noodles were always yellow. So we're going to be using some yellow food dye in honor of my grandma Marks. But noodles were a really big deal. You didn't have a Christmas or a Thanksgiving dinner without noodles. Grandma had a great big roaster, and she would cook that turkey in the electric roaster. And once the turkey was done, she would take the turkey out, piece it out for the meal, and she would make egg noodles in the drippings and add some broth and things like that. And it was always like the best thing about those holiday meals with family. So, like I said, in honor of my grandma, we're going to make it today. We're going to make some turkey and noodles. First thing we're going to have to do is make the noodles. So I've put 3½ cups of flour in this pan. I also cracked 4 eggs and got those ready. I'm going to go ahead and put some yellow food dye in there just because I'm thinking of my grandma today. You can skip that step if you don't want the dye in there, but I'm going to put that yellow food coloring in there. Go ahead and give them a good mix. Maybe add a little salt. And now the eggs are ready. In my flour, I'm also going to go ahead and put, you don't have to do this step, but I like to put a little bit of baking soda in there. About 1 teaspoon of baking soda it ought to do. We'll take our egg mixture, pour it into the bowl. It's about 4 large eggs in here, and like I mentioned before, 3½ cups of flour. Someone got me this really nice tool for mixing doughs. So I'm going to go ahead and start to incorporate that egg into the flour. I made a little bit of a bowl in the flour and I put the eggs in the middle. And then I just keep pulling in more and more flour into that egg mixture as I go. Just incorporate a little bit more and a little bit more at a time. Pretty soon we'll have a nice dough going here. I'm going to go ahead and put a little flour on my hand before I get too far into this, because I'm going to have to do a little mixing with my hand as well. Now I have a mixer, a nice KitchenAid mixer that I make the noodles with, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this by hand today so I can show you guys how to do that as well. So if you don't have that mixer, you don't feel intimidated, then don't try the recipe. So it can be done either way. It can be done with the KitchenAid mixer or by hand like this. Alright, so that's going well. It looks pretty dry. I may have to add a little bit of water to the mixture. Sometimes you got to get that egg and flour ratio just right. And it's difficult to do. So I've done this before in another video, and I ended up adding another egg and then adding more flour and until you finally get it right. But you can also do it by adding just a little bit of water. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Get this mixture going. Looks like it's coming together pretty good now. It's one of those things you got to get your hands in there and get a little messy. A little bit more water. Got to knead all this together. Kind of fun to do if you have kids. You can get them in there and get them doing it. They like getting their hands messy. Now these egg noodles, that you can make all kinds of egg noodles. We would do them with chicken. We would do them with turkey for Thanksgiving. We could do them with beef. It doesn't really matter what your meat is, but you can just use beef broth with beef and make some really good noodles. These are coming together really nice now. Get all the flour to incorporate into the dough. Almost there. You can see why I say it's a little bit easier with a nice mixer. I'm really happy with the one I just got. I was excited to get it. But I don't think my mom ever used a mixer. I think she always did it this route. So you can do it either way. I don't want to waste any of the flour, so I'm just working it real well and getting it all incorporated. Rub some of that off my hands. Now it's getting less sticky. Mix that in. Okay, now we have a nice dough. I'm going to go ahead and set it aside for a minute, get my hands cleaned up. We'll come back and we'll get some flour on the counter and roll out our egg noodles. See you in a minute. If you watched my episode on making ravioli, we talked about how flour is your friend when using egg noodles. So we're making any kind of noodle or pasta. So we're going to go ahead and put some flour on the counter, and we'll be rolling out some of this. Now you can roll out this entire batch of dough at once, but it's a little harder, and it's easier if you just cut it up. I'm going to cut it in fourths. I'm going to toss a bowl over the extra pieces, keep them fresh. Take 1/4 of the dough, work it just a little bit, some flour on it. Some more flour on my hands. Take my rolling pin, get some good flour on it as well. And start rolling this out. Now with the KitchenAid mixer, I also have a pasta attachment, which makes it really nice for rolling out the dough. It's a lot simpler. But like I said, you can do it by hand, and I really think that this is the way my mom always did it, so no big deal. We're going to turn it over, roll it out some more. Getting a good firm pressure on it. If it folds over, fold it back down. Kind of start in the middle and work it a little bit. Push it to the outsides. Some more flour on it. Start in the middle. Roll, roll, roll. Push it to the outside. You'll see that the dough is expanding. Now imagine working all that dough at once. You could tell that it would be a really, really big piece of dough. This is a lot simpler. Makes it a lot nicer. Smaller it is, the easier it is to work. Not impossible to do the big one, but it's a lot easier this way. As you can see, it's getting a lot thinner. Kind of nice. Put some more flour on the deck. On top. Roll it out. And we're almost there. A little more flour. Turn it over. Good flour there. Now I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. Move my cutting board over here. Now, some people like long noodles. My mom used to just cut them up real nice. So I'm going to start by folding it. Getting a nice edge. Rolling it over again. And just keep rolling it over and over until you get a nice tube. Now it shouldn't stick together because we've got plenty of flour on it. And we'll take that, put it on the cutting board, start at an angle, and cut away. Once I've made a nice cut that way, I come back and go the opposite way. Now, according to how thick you want your noodles, how thick you'll cut them. I like to go about 1/4 inch or less. And you just keep going back and forth, and cutting away. These look really nice. Once we get them all cut up here, we'll go ahead and we'll add a little bit more flour to them so that they'll dry out a little bit. Set them aside and I'll do all the other ones and then come back to you. But it's really pretty simple. Just cutting away, and go back this way. Takes a little time, but oh man, is it worth it. A lot of people out here in New Mexico had never even heard of homemade egg noodles. I've introduced them to them and taken them to some pitch-ins, and boy, they're a hit. someone's making a nice prime rib or something like that, you can take these as a side dish, make them with beef and noodles. It'll complement their meal really well. They go really well served on top of potatoes. Like if you make mashed potatoes, you can serve the noodles on top of that, or you can just eat them in a dish by themselves. Fantastic. Kids love noodles. If you have a finicky eater at home, these will come together really nicely for you, and you won't have to make them eat. They'll just go for it. Almost there. Like I said, these look pretty nice. Cut up pretty small. I like them that way. Add a little bit more flour to them. If you add the flour to them now, once they're dry and you go ahead and put them in your broth when you're cooking them, it'll thicken your broth as well. Make really nice creamy. Today it'll be creamy turkey and noodles, but it could be chicken and noodles, beef and noodles, whatever. And there we have it. I'll go ahead and work the other 3 pieces, and we'll be back. Earlier, I added 1.5 quarts of chicken stock to the crock pot. I wanted to get the stock hot before I go on with the next thing. So I had made the noodles, dried them on the counter. I cooked a turkey yesterday and pieced it out. Part of it I set aside to save for today's meal. So this is the chopped up turkey. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the crock pot. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder. Some black pepper. And in lieu of salt, I'm going to use a little bit of in lieu of salt, I'm going to use a little bit of chicken bouillon. Once again, measuring it out in the cap before I pour it in. I'm going to give that all a good stir. Now when you add things to the crock pot or the broth, it's going to bring down the temperature. So we added that cold turkey, so I'm going to let it come up to temperature, and then we'll come back in a little bit and add the noodles. We're back. The crock pot has come back to a boil for me, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the lid. Take some of my noodles. I'm just going to put in a few at a time and mix them in as I go. This will help them keep from sticking together. Just keep adding and mixing and checking your water level or your broth level, because they will soak up a lot of the broth and you're going to need enough moisture to help cook your noodles. All right, it looks like I got it about right. I'm going to go ahead and let these come up to temperature and cook for a little while, and then we'll be back. Well, we're back. And something that always holds true with cooking is there's never really an exact measurement. You got to go back and check things and make sure that things are going well. I went back and I checked my crock pot. And remember I told you that the noodles were going to soak up a lot of liquid? Well, they did, and they needed more. So I went and got a cup like this, filled it with more broth, put it in the microwave, and microwaved it. Now, why would I microwave it? It's important to me that the liquid goes in hot once this is already hot because I don't want to bring down the temperature. So I microwaved the broth, poured it in, let it go, and the noodles are done. They came out pretty good. So let's go ahead and get a bowl and get a taste. They came out creamy. Oh, they just look delicious. Go ahead and turn off my crock pot. And if you can see them, nice and creamy, just absolutely fantastic. Get a taste, it's going to be pretty hot. Get a piece of turkey in there. Well, they're delicious. So, noodles are one of my favorite things. If you try out this, they're soon to be one of yours. Thanks, and thanks for watching. All right, everyone. That concludes today's episode of Cooking with Steve. I hope you enjoyed yourself because I sure enjoyed spending the time with you. If you would, please help me out by liking the video, sharing it with friends, and subscribing. And until our next episode, always remember to live modestly, speak humbly, and enjoy life fully. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.